Very, 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 very.
Oh, Sam.
Sam.
Yeah. You're a musician, so you should be Sam Play, but if you sang, you'd be Samsung.
Well, then I could play it again.
Sam, you probably have a ton of really dumb jokes over
I'm
your
about to have some more green eggs and ham.
Yeah, green eggs and Sam. I guess everybody, grows up in middle school with jokes based on their name. Who doesn't, right?
The nickname I was given by my junior year philosophy teacher, still one I don't really know how it works well, but he used to call me the Dynasty.
The Dynasty? I don't get that.
Well, as in the Han Dynasty.
The which dynasty?
The Han Dynasty, which is part of Chinese history.
Oh, yeah, I'm illiterate on Chinese history. I'm illiterate on a lot of stuff, to tell you the truth.
The more you know, the more you don't know.
I know that I'm illiterate in the humanities because being an engineer, there simply was no room to take any courses in humanities at all as an undergraduate, and certainly not as a graduate. So where a person with liberal arts education has read, enormous amounts of literature in the humanities, I've read essentially zero.
I resemble that remark.
Yeah. And because of that, when people use literary metaphors and poetic metaphors that come out of literature, forget it. I will either take them literally because I don't know their metaphors, or if I can realize that they're probably metaphors, I don't know where to look them up.
So I'm going to apologize in advance if it looks like I'm just staring off into space, because I'm using a laptop I just acquired recently. And strangely, it's the only laptop I've come across where the camera is down just above the keyboard instead of at the top of the screen.
Yeah, we're getting a shot of your screen.
You're probably seeing up my nostrils.
Yeah, you have that sort of that William F. Buckley arrogant look, he has that.
Well, let me tell you about mythology.
Yeah, he always had his head sort of tilted back in that arrogant posture.
So that's, I find, an unusual place to put a camera.
Yeah, do you know why? Is it because of the cabling or something?
No, it's just a standard, regular format clamshell laptop from Dell. Strangely.
From Dell.
Yeah.
It's very strange. Very strange.
Sam, are you familiar with it? There seems to be some model from Dell from many years ago. I picked this up used, but I picked up used because it has a 4K screen. I love a 4K screen.
So it's a late model then. Very late.
Not really. It was actually one of the very earliest 4K laptops. I believe this is 7 or 8 years old.
Really? 4K has been around that long. Wow.
4K has been around since I got my first 4K screen hooked up as a computer monitor way back in 2013. And you know what? I only paid like $380 or $379 for it way back then in 2013. You know why? It was a Chinese model. I've never, ever seen it anywhere else.
Okay.
And never again.
Chinese are very short. They're not 6 feet tall like so many.
No. It was a 35-inch 4K display that I got in 2013. I still use it. It's still over here.
Oh, you're talking about a separate display. Okay.
Yeah. But this is the laptop. But the first display I got, the first TV I got, that was 4K. It was 2013. So that was 10 years ago.
I have a late 2013 iMac that a friend of mine gave me. I think it came with, I forget which operating system it came with. Mojave. I think it came with Mojave. And just this morning, I upgraded it to Ventura 13.4.
Oh.
So we're talking about a 10-year-old iMac, and it's running the latest operating system. Well, it's not running Sonoma because that's not really out yet, but it's running Ventura. I got a 2012 Mac Mini running Ventura.
The iMac is an all-in-one built-in, right?
Right, exactly.
I think I have a 27-inch 2013 iMac also.
Yeah.
It's got what they call, I think, a 5K display, not a 4K.
And
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and the Sprout that Sam gave me runs Windows 10 just fine. Oddly enough, it's not new enough to run Windows 11. It's just shy of some requirement. I don't know what, but I
Yeah,
think
the TPM, they call it TPM. Anyways, it's a hardware security thing that it needed so that you can satisfy the requirement of the security hardware requirement. Is a TPM. I forgot what the name called. Anyway, it's the TPM.
yeah, I know I know about TPM. I just forget. Yeah, I forget what the letters stand for. Now, there are some hacks I understand
Yep.
to override that, and
Yep.
I'm reluctant to do that because the first time you try a hack like that, you screw it up, and I don't want to bother to screw it up.
Yeah, it's not gonna be, it's not a big deal. But the thing is, with your in Windows 11, you get a lot of new application that you would not otherwise get in 2010. That's about it.
Yeah, but
I
for
mean-
that machine, like for example, when I brought it up, the way you delivered it to me, it did not have the Sprout workspace application,
Right.
and so I had to find it, download it. But after I downloaded the Sprout workspace application, then all that extra stuff, came to life.
Right.
And like I say, I've only had it installed for about a week, so I haven't really learned,
Right.
learned the ropes. I have to, number one, learn the user interface for it, learn the ropes.
Yeah.
And number two, learn the affordances of it, and then learn to use the affordances of it in some constructive way that I haven't quite had any bright ideas yet exactly, what. For example, you can do a lot of sketching on the pad,
Yeah.
and the problem is that as a sketch artist, I have less than zero talent. I'm terrible at sketching by hand. So that's not anything that I would probably try to do, because unless you can take a childish sketch and
Yeah.
somehow turn it into something quality, I don't know. That's an AI.
It's a sandbox for you to play with. That's why I say it's a sandbox for you to play with. That is sketch and you don't like it, just erase it. There's an eraser you can use and all that. So you can scan in models and pictures and whatever that you want to play with. This is a multi-purpose artist, so it's a developed part of you that it was not there before.
And you can scan 3D, you can put a 3D object and get a 3D scan and make a 3D model, which I haven't even attempted to find out how you do that, let alone try it. Because again, the thing is, how would I find an activity that's worth sharing, that's quality and worth sharing, that uses that affordance? And no doubt they exist, and no doubt I could learn to do something creative with it. But after a week, I haven't even begun to try to consider what I should try to learn.
Well, basically, remember this is before ChatGPT 4.0. It has it, so you can ask ChatGPT for help as well. I mean, or Bart for help as well. So there's a lot of. It's one of the tools that I really is a computer that I don't like it, and they take the spend a lot of money, and then after that they scrap it because it didn't fly or whatever.
Yeah, I read that it didn't have much of a market, and I can see why, because I presume it was pretty expensive.
Yeah, it was very expensive. It cost me quite a lot of money. Yeah.
Did you buy it for yourself?
Yeah. I always buy something that's what I call not in the main branch. Everything that's a newer technology, I always, like for example, HoloLens, it's $3,500 when it first came out 10 years ago. I bought the first one. Google Glass, I bought the first one, iPhone, I bought the first one. And 10 years ago, I switched over to Microsoft Surface. You know about Microsoft Surface?
Yeah. So yeah, it's basically a big laptop that you write on.
Yeah, it's a tablet as well as a laptop. The keyboard come apart, so this is my sixth one or something like that.
I see.
Yeah.
So I've got it set up in the kitchen. And the next thing, and so I've got everything working. I got the 2 cameras working.
Right.
I got the Sprout working. And what I haven't hooked up yet, although I think it'll be straightforward, is that big surround sound system.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out two questions. What room in the house has enough floor space that it makes sense? And 2, which machine is it compatible with?
Well, there are 2 ways you can think about it. One is the speaker, the reason I want you to have the speaker is because, you know, I have one, it's quite expensive. It's like $500, that kind of thing, right? It's just an expensive speaker. So I hate to throw it away because
Oh, yeah.
I rarely use it. But again, it's a new technology, Dolby Surround, THX and all that good stuff. So you love classical music, you will love it when it's all set up, it's all working. The second thing is that if you need to, you can buy a USB device or a, you know, PCI card that you can plug in and get you that fiber optics sound or whatever. That's you can use a regular keyboard, a regular audio output as well. Then, you know, the small connector as well. You can play with it in the sense that you can do it. We can just two speaker, or you can use all 5 speakers.
Yeah.
And a beautiful
So
subwoofer.
Yeah, so I have to figure out which machines have the right multi-channel audio output,
Right.
compatible, and where I can find, you know, in the floor space, because you got that great big bass unit, which you have to have because that's got the
subwoofer.
right.
That's heavy. That's the heavy one.
I know. So I'm pretty sure I can figure out where to put it. That can sort of go far in the back of the room.
Right.
But that's the last thing to hook up because I've spent so little time listening to classical music. I mean, most of the stuff here is just speech, so it's monophonic and, you know, low fidelity. And this room doesn't have enough room to put that anything.
Yeah.
Let's talk about classical music.
Sam's got a big enough house. He probably could have had plenty of, you know, places where he could have parked a unit like that.
I've shown you.
I'll figure out where to put it. I'll figure out where to put it. But it's sort of the lowest priority.
Yeah.
3 items you sent me. Oh, the other thing is that those Sun, I can't remember the brand name, Sun Plus webcams. They're virtually indistinguishable from a Logitech 920, C920. They look almost identical to it.
Right.
But because it's a USB, it has a vendor ID and a product ID in the USB connection, right? So if you have the Logitech model, you can install the there it is. Yeah. Which one is that? Is that the Logitech or is that the
Logitech?
Yeah. So that one, which is almost identical in appearance.
Yeah.
You can download something called Logitune. Logitune allows you to do electronic zoom, pan, and tilt. So you set the camera up, and then electronically with the Logitune control panel, you could zoom, pan, and tilt. So I wondered, could I use Logitune on the Sun Plus?
No.
The answer is no, because it doesn't recognize the vendor ID and the product ID as one. Right. So now the next question is there something equivalent to Logitune that's a UVC generic, or can I hack the Logitune to accept the vendor ID and the product ID of the Sun Plus?
The question is, how much do you want to hack? You know, if you go to the firmware, you want to go to the code and compile your own open source, you know, video card driver. A lot of the USB-C webcam is using the generic open source drivers, so to speak.
Yeah, UVC is the generic driver.
Yeah.
So that is a UVC compliant, and Logitech is also UVC compliant. So if I could find something like Logitune that's generic, then I could do it. So I either have to find a generic version of Logitune, or I have to figure out how to hack Logitune, or I just say, never mind, I'm just going to not have zoom, pan, and tilt.
I wouldn't bother with zoom them until it's a lot of times it's not very useful, because after you play with it for like the first 15 minutes, you wear out the the fun color.
The one place where I would consider it, as you know, the local Toastmasters Club has hybrid meetings, and I'm the guy who runs the whole TV studio in a satchel thing, and I've got this old camcorder on a tripod, and I could use one of those on the same tripod, but then I would need the electronic zoom, pan, and tilt.
Right.
Whereas
I got two C920. If you want, I can ship it to you if that helps you or whatever.
Well, why don't you not do that just yet? Because I already got the 2 Sun Plus, which are essentially equivalent in terms of the video quality. And let me see if I can either find a generic zoom, pan, and tilt, or just forget about it. Like, for example, this what I'm using here I mean, I can tilt it this way, by hand,
Right.
but that's it. I can't do much more
Right.
than that with it.
Did
Not
I
that
send you
matters, 'cause
the nice 360 camera, video conferencing camera?
the problem with
That's
video conferencing camera in the conference room at the community center,
Yeah, the 360.
two problems with it. One problem with it is that we have two members of the club who, when they attend in person, they have hearing aids or hard of hearing.
Okay.
And you got people spread out in a room. So the people who are hard of hearing, and then we got one guy who just speaks very softly, doesn't speak very loudly. So the room has a handheld wireless mic that the sound comes out of 6 speakers in the ceiling.
Right.
Suppose you have a camera that says, I'm going to aim the camera physically at whoever's talking,
Right.
but now the sound is coming out of 6 places on the ceiling at once.
Mm.
Where's the sound coming from?
I see.
And here's the thing. So we also have a PolySync 40 speakerphone system. It's one of those it's kind of an oblong shape, and it's got three mics, left, right, and center. And you can get a model, it's got 5. And so it's an electronically steerable phased array. It can figure out where the sound is coming from and aim its direction of listening. But what happens to this thing, this phased array microphone, if the sound is coming from every direction in the room? So it can't aim at one direction. It's getting sound from the ceiling and sound bouncing off the walls. And here's the funny thing, you may have heard this term. If you hear a sound coming from every direction, that's called the voice of God. See, if you can say, oh, that person's talking. But if the voice sounds coming from everywhere, sort of the jargon term in audio engineering is the voice of God. Just you can't see where it's coming from. It's coming from everywhere and nowhere.
Yeah, I hear the voice of God about, I guess, 3 or 4 years ago. You know why?
Why?
My right ear is out. It's no longer. So I only have 1 year's working. So I have a hearing aid that help me to pick up the sound from it. But when I take out my hearing aid, actually it makes no difference. I'm trying to locate my phone.
Yeah.
It could be 2 feet away from me. I have no way of knowing where it is. I have no way to know.
You don't have stereophonic hearing, which allows you to steer.
Yeah, I cannot. Yeah, that's right.
And your brain steers both electronically and physically. So you can tell that the sound's coming over, and then you turn your head in the direction you hear it come from, and then you get a balanced one, and both ears are picking it up. But you can tell, if you got 2 working ears, that where the sound is coming from.
That's right. I have to get my wife or my daughter to help me to locate things that's like, I know it's in this room, I know it's here, I just don't know where it is.
But what's really cool, and I'm sure Sam Han knows this, is that you have the technology called phased array, electronically steerable phased array, both the linear phased array and then the matrix, the rectangular phased array. And that technology has been known and used, for decades. But your average layperson, if you say phased array, they haven't a clue what it means. And even if you carefully explain it, well, this PolySync 40 speakerphone has 3 microphones, and it can steer, electronically steer which direction it's listening. And I try to explain that to the Toastmasters. I think one person sort of understood it.
Yeah.
And he said, and I said, by the way, have you ever heard the term phased array? He says, never heard that term. It was new to him. And so when they were using this phased array speakerphone, they didn't know how to use it. One guy said, I'm going to mount it on a tripod. So he puts it up on a tripod and he mounts it like this with something over the center speaker, center microphone. And he has it aiming downward toward the floor. And the people at home are saying, boy, the sound is just terrible today. We can't. And I said, yes, this is a phased array microphone. It has to be upright. It has to be, at this level. And it steers. And I said to them, I said, now pay attention. I'm only going to explain this 17 times over the next year. And they knew that I was going to have to explain it more than once because it's technology.
See,
Go ahead,
if
Sam.
I may, This is where I just start to have to shake my head. The people who, claim to be science skeptics, if they've got Starlink, they're benefiting from phased array.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this Starlink wouldn't even be possible if you didn't have these hundreds of little micro transceivers
Right.
on these devices.
And superficially, you think, oh, it's a parabolic reflector like the classic. No, it's not a parabolic reflector with one sense, that has to be physically aimed. No, it's steerable, and it's not parabolic. It's just curved a little bit. It's not even a parabola.
It doesn't even have to be curved.
No, it is curved because it's optimal to curve it a little bit. It's better than perfectly flat. But
actually, you should check the design of the latest Starlink device. It's actually quite interesting to read how it's layered and how all these devices are used. And of course, it requires a lot of compute power in the back.
Yeah. So this is where I get a disconnect between, the geeky Barry, the technology geeky Barry, and the layperson who wants the technology just to work. Yeah. And they think, oh, if we get one of those cameras that can swivel, and then we're going to be in a room where the sound is coming out of the ceiling speakers for the benefit of the people who are hard of hearing and who whisper. Then, you've got two mutually incompatible technologies, and they would never figure out why it doesn't work. They would never figure it out.
And yet they use this very platform, this very channel, to doubt and be skeptics on science and truth and engineering and mathematics.
Yeah. So my, that's the cross I have to bear, to use a terrible theological pun, is having to act as an interface between the technology people who know what the hell they're doing and the lay people who haven't a clue what they're doing, and they don't know how to make the technology work optimally or even decently.
You just described my job for the last 40 years.
It's an art. And I tell you, the president of the club, the president of Toastmasters is a life coach, and he's really, really good at dealing with people. And he's mediocre at technology. He's not techno shy, but he's not techno deep. And so I interface to him on the technology side, and then he has to interface to the lay people. So when I'm dealing with something technology, I got to go, hey, Rob, I need you to down translate this from Barry speak to public speak, because I can't figure out how to talk to the general public and actually have them understand what the fuck I'm talking about.
You haven't figured out how to use prompt to get AI to help you to how to say it now? Come on, Barry.
On Facebook, yes. On Facebook, if 2 or 3 people are having a colloquy in some long thread, and they're arguing multiple sides of a question, I will take the colloquy with 2 or 3 people arguing, paste it into ChatGPT-4, ask ChatGPT-4 to summarize this discussion, then paste the summary back. And I can do that on Facebook. If we're talking about in a physical meeting in the room at the community center, and I'm busy with the camera and the whole thing, I haven't got time to do that
Got it. You don't have the bandwidth, and you don't have the.
And also, I can't interrupt the meeting because the meeting is running on a very tight time schedule, because every role has a certain amount of time. Yeah, it's all got to fit in. And if I stop to explain something, I've totally disrupted the Toastmasters agenda. And I keep saying to them, I say, please add a 5-minute slop time into the hour-long meeting. So if there's a glitch, I can say, time out, let's fix the glitch. But I'll take no more than 5 minutes total to try to fix a glitch. And they all agree that's a good idea, but they still make the agenda completely full for the hour. They don't give me the 5 minutes that I want to fix the glitches.
Yeah, the law of inertia.
It's just that they'll agree to an idea, consent to an idea, and then not actually implement it.
Yeah.
And I can't disrupt the meeting because it's that's so you try to do it without being disruptive.
Yeah.
And so you got to get up and run over there and do something over here. And so you got this floor manager running around the room in the middle of a meeting, and there people are trying to do their their little speeches and whatnot. And here I am, like a little gadfly running around the room, trying to fix everything.
Keeps you healthy, Barry.
Say what?
It keeps you healthy.
Well, it's true that it gets me out of the house. Here's the thing. The meeting itself is an hour. Starts at noon and it ends at 1 o'clock on the dot. I have to leave before 11 to get there to set up all the portable TV studio. So I have to drive there, which is 20 minutes, set the thing up, which is about 20 minutes. And then at the end of the meeting, tear it all down, pack it back up in the satchel, put it back in my car and drive home. So for me, it's about 3 hours. And it's every week. And I'm the only guy who can do it. I don't want to be the damn guru that nobody else can substitute for me. That's the problem.
Are there no young members in their 20s and 30s who appreciate speaking and learning speaking skills, who is likely more tech savvy than the rest of the membership?
There's one guy who just joined. He had joined a few months ago, but his day job, he's a park ranger, national park ranger day job. And a month after he joined, they switched his shift so that he couldn't come at noon. And 4 months later, they switched his shift back, so he's resuming. So he's been back for like 3 weeks, and he is sufficiently competent and has the aptitude to learn that in probably 2 months he will surpass me. He will be able to do everything I do and better. And then we have one other guy who says, we need a floor manager. I said, you're it. So the floor manager figured out where should people sit so that they're not in front of a sunlit window behind them, or that the people who speak softly are close to the speakerphone, and the people who are hard of hearing are close to the speakerphone, and everybody else who talks in a loud voice and has really good hearing, they can be farther away from the huddle. And he's going to basically, I said, you figure out how to make the room so that people are optimally around in the huddle so that everybody can hear everybody, and they don't have to use those 6 ceiling speakers, which screw up the phased array speakerphone. So there you have it. We have 2 people who are potentially competent enough to do a job that I don't need to do, therefore, and can do it as well or better than I could have done it. But I can't do 4 roles at the same time. I have to be cameraman and spotlighting and futz with the audio and everybody else who brings up their laptop and they forget to mute their speaker. There's too damn many things that, in a real TV studio, you got a cameraman on each camera, you've got a director, you've got an audio engineer, you got a lighting engineer, and then you got a post-production guy who does the titles. And you got a team of 5 people in a studio. How can one person do all 5 roles simultaneously?
OBS.
The problem with OBS is that you've got people.
I know, it's a joke.
Where are you going to put the camera? And how are you going to control it? Because it wants to steer towards where the sound is coming from.
Next project, Barry, is to mount cameras on drones.
On what?
On drones.
On drones. Oh, right.
Hey,
Yeah.
since we're taking this opportunity to ask Sam about device advice, can I ask about one?
Yeah.
Sam, do you have a Samsung watch or an iWatch? Do you use one?
What do you mean Samsung what? Tell me more about what do you mean by
Just like an iWatch pairs with an iPhone, Samsung.
okay,
Smart
watch. Okay.
Smartwatch. Smartwatch.
Watch, okay.
Smart-
Samsung Watch, there are so many of them. I mean, Android, they call it Android Watch.
Yeah.
What do you try to accomplish?
Okay, what I'm trying to accomplish is I'm trying to figure out, I just switched a bunch of lines from AT&T to T-Mobile.
Okay.
And so part of the promotion is if you do that, and if you keep the line for 24 months, they'll give you a Samsung G5 watch or an iWatch. And basically you get all the price of the watch back as monthly credits over 24 months. So effectively, you don't pay for the watch, you just pay for the line, which is $10 a month. So I'm just wondering whether you have found it useful as an adjunct or augmentation of your phone, or whether it's a gimmick. And I've never used a connected watch.
Get an
So-
iWatch. Don't get the Android watch. Android watch is I have tried. For many years I had carried two phones with me, and I got two watches. I compare them side by side. I like the iWatch a lot better than the Android watch. Yeah, I mean, you can go deeper into it, but the interface and the whole platform, think of it that they have it. The ecology part of design is much more cleaner and all that stuff. So
you have the feature of casting. You can have one device that's got a very small screen, and you can cast the image, the video, to a big flat screen, you know.
right.
And so the ability to cast both the audio and the video from one mobile device to another stationary desktop or screen on the wall, that's a very useful feature. It's tricky if you have incompatible manufacturer technology protocols, then you got to figure out how to hack them. But
Yeah, but the Samsung Watch may have more functionality. So speaking of it, that they have more libraries, they have more apps, they have more whatever electronic, transducer, whatever is built into the watch. But then the trouble is, it's not accessible from the user perspective, because we don't really have a lot of patience to learn new things, believe it or not.
there you go. There you go.
So
That's the problem. It's not impossible to learn. It's just like learning to drive a car. When
That's
you were
right.
a teenager, you spent 6 freaking months learning to drive a car before you could qualify for a driver's license.
yeah.
Well, technology is sometimes, 2, 3, 4 months. No, they don't give you a driver's license, and you pseudo semi-learn it, but not very well.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of erratic to use
I mean,
it.
look at it this way, right? So you have to understand the what do you call that, the operating system structure. So that's how you know it. So for example, stairs and elevator and escalator is all different device to get you up to the second floor, right?
Right.
And then the second thing is that the interface, so when it's seamless, it's easy, right? So to give you an example of my Tesla, I've been driving Tesla for the last 10 years. So a lot of times I just stop the car and open the door and walk out. And guess what I forget to do?
Turn it off.
Turn it off.
Put it in park, turn it off.
So you just leave it running.
You have no idea. But the Tesla will put in park for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, Master says because you opened your driver door, so it's safe for me to put in park for you.
Yep.
Put in park for me and then turn it off for me. So my wife was telling me, I was driving my old car, my Mercedes S500. You know what happened?
You
She went
forgot.
to the office and worked for a couple hours. Like, I think I forgot the key. Went there and the engine is still running.
And the door is unlocked and nobody stole it.
Of course, yeah. So it's like, again, so it's a lot of, more technologies that make it seamless for a person like me. Right now I just walk out of the car. I don't have to lock my car. I don't have to park my car. I don't have to put my parking brake on and
Mhm.
take my keys. Nothing. I don't have to do any of those. So when they're seamless, people tend to use it, and that's what Steve Jobs is talking about. They don't know what they want yet until I give it to them, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and Samsung doesn't have that Steve Jobs touch, so to speak. So it's like, that's the difference that make the difference. So that's why the new device, the Vision Pro, $3,500. So it's coming out next year. That's a 3D iPhone. Yeah, right. Yeah,
$3,500.
yeah.
super expensive gizmo.
I
The one thing I
bought
would love-
again, as I say, I bought the HoloLens from Microsoft 10 years ago. I have it. I
Did you buy
have
the
it right
Newton
here.
also about 20 or 30 years ago?
Also the Google Lens. Yeah, Google Lens. Actually, I know the guy that designed the Google Lens, Tom Chi. Yeah, I know the guy. So anyway, I met the guy and we spent a couple of weeks together and all that stuff. So anyway, I have anything that's new, I buy them.
What I'm looking forward to, and I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime, is instead of wearing these glasses when I'm driving the car will have like cameras like on the windshield, left, right, and center. And I'll be wearing Google glasses that will produce a very nice, 180-degree vision of the road in front of me. So I can see in peripheral vision people stepping off the curb on the crosswalk. and it won't have the sun in my eyes. I'm driving, directly into the morning sun. And if they had that technology, I'd love it, because my night vision isn't good,
In 5 years' time, you won't have any steering wheel or gas pedal or brake pedal in 5 years' time. Trust me.
Or the goggles. You would actually just look at the interior of the screen. There
Yep.
would be transparent windows.
Yeah.
Also, the windshield would be projecting what's outside the window, but it would be technically opaque.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need windshield to project anything. All you do is just sit there and listen to your music and
that's
play your
right.
chess or whatever you're going on.
Because
5 years' time.
To enjoy the view.
I really, as I age, I really get much more trepidation about driving.
Oh yeah, trust me.
I just go, my peripheral vision isn't so good. My reflexes aren't so good. My ability to read the tiny print on the street signs isn't so good.
Yeah.
And I have to drive very slow compared to the average driver.
Right.
I don't want to drive at night unless I know exactly where I'm going.
Well, I planned for this, what you just say 5 years ago. I'm only at that time when I'm 62. So, 55 years old, I already started telling my wife that I'm way ahead of the game. I'm preparing for my, so let's give you some idea on the Tesla that I'm driving, the new one I got, the Model 3 that I got 4 years ago. The first week that I got back, I picked up the cousin of my wife coming back from San Francisco to go to a concert. Made a long story short, in the middle of the highway near San Francisco airport, my steering wheel steer for me to the left. Like, I don't know what's going on. I found out that there was another Tesla that was getting too close to me, and he's trying to get away from the accident.
Oh, it was avoiding a collision.
That's right, automatically. It's like,
Oh.
that was my first one. I got 3 other incidents like that, like avoiding accident for me. I mean, all that stuff. So, and the other thing that I use a lot is that you can program it in such a way that it will, well, it's like when the car suddenly stop and you didn't receive and you turn away, you beep at you, and so you can have adjusted so like they have 3 settings, like A, B, and C thing over that way, and C is the most aggressive ones, like even like 10 feet, it will warn you, even though you're 10 feet away and all that stuff. So again, I use every single anti-crashing technology I can find.
Yeah, should completely eliminate rear end collisions, so that
Yeah,
if you were going to have a rear end collision, it says, no, you're not. I'm going to stop you in time.
that's right. And by the way, I'm not sure you heard about this news or not. I pay attention to this because safety is everything to me. By 2026, every single production car will have automatic brake. You cannot kill a person. You cannot run into a person. You cannot rear end a person. Never. That will put an end to it.
So you can recognize not just a car in front of you, but a human or a bicycle, and avoid you running over an obstacle.
Yeah, a dog.
Or dog. Well, that's fabulous.
Yeah,
Because boy,
yeah.
that will really cut down on collisions and pedestrian and all that kind of nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, in 3 years' time, that's it.
I mean, the thing that really worries me is that, in Massachusetts, if you step off the curb on a crosswalk, by law, you have to stop and wait for them.
Yeah.
The problem is that you need, really good peripheral vision,
Right.
to make sure that, you see the end of the crosswalk clearly as you're approaching it all the time.
Yeah.
Even if there's parked cars, the blocking, so you don't actually see the edge of the crosswalk until you get equal to the closest parked car.
Yeah. So if you get a new Model 3 right now, it will stop for you, even though you don't stop. You will beep at you, beep the heck out of you, tell you to stop.
Yeah. Like I said, the last time I did it and I hit the brakes hard, it did anti-lock braking. Went chuck, 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 chuck.
Yeah, that's
Did anti-lock
calibration.
braking. So, because I was braking manually with my own foot, but I braked so hard that it went into anti-lock braking.
Yeah. Anytime you after start driving your car, and the first brake that you have will have that, unless you brake on the way out of the garage.
Yeah, I need to do the brake adjustment with the backup. I did on my old car. I haven't done it on this newer model I have.
Right.
Yeah, I need to do that. There's a lot of things I need to get the headlights aimed optimally for me.
Right.
When I got the car, they were aimed so high it didn't illuminate the road at all. And I had them turn them way down, but now I got them too far down, and I got to get them just to the right.
Yeah, you replace your car with a Tesla Model 3 and have autopilot.
But a
features.
$50,000 car, for what I drive, I don't think so.
Well,
I spent $12,000 on this 10-year-old car that replaced the 25-year-old car that finally became undrivable.
yeah, I was looking at Honda. I mean, I'm looking at Volvo at the time, Mercedes. I'm looking at all the, now they even come close to what Tesla can do.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Hopefully this, I mean, modulo, if I can get my cataracts, new lenses from the cataracts, maybe that will make my night driving and everything else better. This eye has got cataracts. This eye is starting to get cataracts, but they didn't want to do this eye until both eyes needed it. Because if you're very nearsighted in one eye and the other eye has a synthetic lens that's distanced, then your two eyes, the image sizes don't mate, and your brain can't give you stereo vision. So they said you have to wait until both eyes need it.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I thought you can do it whenever.
But you can have a difference in diopters of, I don't know, a couple of diopters, it's okay. But if your difference is like 4 or 5 diopters between the two eyes, then your brain just can't merge the two images because they're different sizes on the back of the retina.
Too much to compensate for. Yeah.
And so that's why. So I still get stereo vision. It's just that the left eye doesn't resolve very well. For example, if I had to read the license plate number on the car in front, I ain't gonna read. I can tell there's a license plate, I just can't read the number.
You don't need that.
I don't know, except if I want to read the street sign because I'm looking for a street.
You can always install a dash cam in front of your car so that it will read it for you as you need it later on.
Yeah, I should play around. I got some old toys that I should play with like that. I haven't bothered to try to.
Yeah, dash cam is easy. Basically, all you do is install on windshield, and you got your license plate reader for you on record.
Yeah, the thing is that I drive so little and always to the same place, so it's not like I have to know exactly where I am or GPS or anything.
I wonder if you drive so little, why don't you use Uber instead of having your own car?
Well, for one thing, when I do the Toastmasters meeting, I got to put a whole TV studio in a satchel in my trunk.
Yeah, they can do that for you.
And well, yeah, except that.
Put it in the wheel.
A roll around, Barry.
Oh yeah. Well, maybe as these other two guys, these two new guys have enough know-how that I'll be able to leave the gear locked up in a closet someplace in the
that sounds a better idea.
And then I don't have to. The only other thing is that the camcorder I'm using, the old camcorder, has rechargeable batteries, and you have to take the battery out and recharge it between meeters.
You can take that one home if you want.
Well,
you can take that one home. Yeah.
Then I have to go the next week because I have custody of the camera. So
if I were you, I have 2 sets of battery.
No, 2 chargers.
Put 2 chargers and 2 sets of battery.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that I have 1 charger and 3 batteries.
Okay. Then
So
here's a simple exercise in systems thinking, right?
Yeah. 2 chargers, that's all. And actually you can leave a charger there, nobody's gonna take it, right?
Yeah. So whether I can find a second, here's the odd thing. That camcorder, you can plug into a power supply on the wall.
Right.
And you need to do that if you're going to download images off the SD card into your computer. You have to have it plugged into the wall. But if you plug it into the wall, it doesn't save the battery for when you're actually, using the camera. The one that you plug into the camera from the wall doesn't keep the battery charged.
Because the power is only enough to power the camera, that's not enough power to charge a battery.
It simply doesn't have the adapter, it doesn't have the circuit to also charge. The battery charger has to be in a separate unit because these batteries have a very special requirement that you don't burn them up when you're charging them.
Right.
So it has a special external charger, and so you can keep the camera running, but you're still using the battery.
Got it. Yeah, I have some device that like that. Is for me, it's I think it's engineering.
So
Yeah.
I have to take it home so I can charge the battery between meetings. What I do is I take the battery out that's been used for 2 hours or an hour.
Right.
I charge it and I take the other battery and put it in the camera for next time.
Yeah.
So I do swap the batteries so that I just put when I take the old one out, I put the fresh one in.
So the battery charging battery charging is really straightforward. I mean, it's all
not complicated, but you gotta remember to do it. If you don't remember, like one time we had both a board meeting and a regular meeting, which is more than 2 hours. And I had forgotten to change the battery. So halfway into the regular meeting, the battery went out. In the middle of the meeting, I got to go swap the battery on the camera. I had to go into the bag and get the battery that I forgot to put in the fresh one. The fresh battery lasts, I think, for 2.5 hours or something like that.
You know, the other possibility, if we may, I'm not sure you want to mess around with that. It's pretty straightforward. Have you ever seen the battery eliminator? So think of this way. So usually they have AA battery, right? So they'll have two fake AA battery with the wire coming out. So all you do is stick it in and drill a little hole so that the wire can fit into the battery compartment.
Yeah, these little batteries are little cube-shaped batteries, just for the camera. And whether or not you can get a pseudo battery that connects to an external power supply.
So what you do is this: break the battery out and remove the inside of the battery, and then just have solder two wire into the hole is, and then have the DC adapter that power pretending like a battery. Only this is replacing the battery source that store battery with the wire.
Yeah, I understand the idea.
Yeah,
I don't want to destroy the existing battery.
Well, you can, so once you have that, you will never ever have to replace a battery or charge a battery ever.
Yeah, but you would have to be able to plug in the camera whenever you.
That's right. Yeah, well, you just plug in the camera as you need it. That's like that's it. There will be.
I think before we do that, we'll probably retire the old camcorder. See, this is an old SD camcorder.
I see.
But it happened to have an HDMI output.
Right.
So I bought the adapter from HDMI format to USB webcam format. Just a little dongle that was like $8.
Right.
And that allowed me to plug it into the laptop and use it as a Zoom webcam.
Right. I mean, the reason I don't want to use a battery is because you're using battery and then you discharge it and it's a hassle. So if you can, like I say, all you're looking for is that the two terminal need juice. I don't care how you make it happen. If you have a solder to join into it, be it.
In principle, what I could do is that during the meeting, I could plug into the wall the battery charger for the second battery.
Right.
So I always got a fresh battery, and then I recharge the spare battery during the meeting.
Right.
I could
so
do that.
Imagine they're going to do 10,000 times the next 5 years or whatever. How would you do it differently?
The thing is that we only meet once a week, so it's 50 times a year.
50 times a
something
year.
Somebody has to learn. Somebody has to document. You have to remember. If you forget,
This is the problem. Even if somebody.
But think systemically, Barry. Think systemic systems thinking. Because right now you're not really listening to Sam, is my observation.
I understand what he's saying. The thing is that where am I going to get that proprietary cube-shaped battery for that 10-year-old or 15-year-old model?
You don't need it. According to Sam,
take one and destroy it. You can take one out and destroy it again.
Just put two leads to the battery leads, and you don't need the battery.
That's right.
That's
what I mean when I say I don't see you listening to Sam.
Oh, but then I have to also find an external charger that produces whatever see, it's not, it's not.
I tried, Sam.
It's one of those things that has it's like a computer battery. It's got like 17, not 17, it's got like 5 leads that fits into a slot.
Yeah.
I don't know what's inside of the thing. Because
so think of this way, your camcorder requires a DC voltage and the amps pair that match the terminal that the battery is giving you. So you know that. So that's a pretty straightforward thing. So whether you have a battery shaped plastic container that contain battery or not is irrelevant.
Yeah.
You can follow me so far?
Yeah, I mean, so the rechargeable batteries have both the voltage supply and also the sensing of the state of the battery. These the thing that says,
Yeah. Right, we
So-
don't need that. We don't need that. The sensing of the battery doesn't need that because again, the camcorder require you to have a voltage and the amps that is need to constantly
so you're
supply
saying
the
that
DC.
so if it doesn't sense the battery state, the camcorder will still work anyway.
Yeah.
All right, I would not have guessed that.
Well, basically think of it this way. It's like think of it like a torchlight. You have a bulb that send DC voltage to the bulb and the light comes on, right?
Yeah. Because for example, the camcorder tells you how much battery life is left.
Right.
So it's reading the sensor to tell you.
You
how
know
much-
why? You know how it, do you know what it does? So it give you the voltage that left. It's called the battery tester, right? When it's 1.5, for example, the AA battery, 1.5 volt will become 1.7 volt, then the battery is full, a brand new battery.
Yeah.
When
But
it's
I-
at 1.4 and 1.3, the battery is weak, so battery is discharged. That's all it is.
But you know, the battery in the laptop, it tells you how many minutes to charge or how many minutes to discharge.
That's right. It's all the
That's-
voltage, all the DC voltage is what tells
You
you.
think it's only the voltage? I would have
Yes,
thought that it was.
I 100% sure for sure.
Then why does it have all those other leads?
Okay, think of it this way. There's no data coming from a battery. No data. There's no CPU, no any logical device in there. All it is a pure lithium ion material or any kind of what material that's make the battery. Where is the signal coming from? There's no digital data at all. It's all it's a voltage and current.
I thought that the state of the battery, the charging state of the battery, was probably an analog.
No,
signal.
it's all it is no. Let's see if I can grab the battery tester. I might have one here.
I have one here too. So for example, let's see. Where's the?
Oh,
connect-
type into chat GDP.
Yeah. So you see
Yeah,
that this is where the battery connects. Okay, right,
Yeah,
right there.
right.
So it's got, I don't know, you can count them. I don't know how many terminals. So you've got the voltage, but then you've got a whole bunch of others that are keeping track of the state of the battery, for
Yeah,
charging
having
and
to check.
discharging, so that you don't have a fire. This is all about making sure that you don't, charge them at the wrong rate and have an overheating and a fire.
But
And
that's
so-
not the camcorder battery.
No, but the camcorder battery, I think, has 4 terminals instead of this one's got 6 or something, or 8. But it has more than one lead. It says smaller. I'm not gonna go get it and show it to you. It's a little cute.
Yeah, right. So what I know is that battery tester that you can buy from the Costco battery tester for the AA battery.
Mhm.
How do you know it's a new battery or how do you know it's time to throw away the battery?
Yeah, well,
Battery.
the battery tells you its age. It knows how long it's been. It keeps track of its age. It keeps
No, it
track
does not.
of its
Doesn't-
cycles. It keeps track of temperature. Keeps track of a lot of parameters.
The battery tester. So how is battery tester work? So let's try that. Chat GPT and see what it says.
Well, I mean, so a battery tester will put a slight resistive load, because if you measure the open terminal voltage, it'll be
Right.
high. But if you put, say, 100 ohm load on it, or a kilo ohm load
Yeah,
on it,
Right,
then what happens is, because of internal resistance inside the battery,
right.
the terminal voltage will drop.
Agree.
So I have a multimeter that will just read straight voltage. And then I have
Right.
one that's for 1.5 or 9 volt battery, and I can see the terminal voltage goes down, and I
Yeah,
can even see it dropping,
right.
because not only is the energy production going down, but the internal resistance of the battery is
That's
causing a drop in
That's
the
right.
terminal voltage. But the battery tester is doing all the work on that one.
I mean, basically, the only thing is whatever battery load testing is doing is giving you the voltage of is the battery 1.5 volt or is the battery 1.7 volt or is the battery 1.3 volt?
So for example, if I put a battery in a battery charger, which is like an
Mhm.
alkaline or a lead
Mhm.
acid, not lead acid, but carbons, whatever, and I can charge it up even though you're not supposed to. If I
Right.
put it on the tester that adds a little load on it, I can see the voltage starts out at 1.6, and then slowly degrades. So if in an hour it's back down to, half a volt, I know that, even though I can charge it and get a terminal voltage that's good for a minute, it's not gonna run for an hour.
Right.
But I can actually see it. I can actually watch the voltage go down when I put it on the.
So I just type in how battery tester works. 4 words in ChatGPT 4.0.
What's it say?
Boy, it's a long one. Let's see if I can send it to you.
Does it fit in the chat? The chat's got a limit of, I think, 1,000 characters.
Yeah, I'm going to send it to you on the chat.
You can also send it to me in the Facebook chat.
No, it's fine. I can send it on this chat here because all I do is send you the link, my friend. Remember that?
Oh, that new feature. Oh, now, but here's the problem. I'm on El Capi 10 on, and I'm running a Zoom version. If I click that, this Zoom application is going to crash.
Okay, fine. Let me send it to you.
No, I have to copy it. I just have to do a pure copy, not a click.
Right.
Oh, now I'm getting it's freezing on me.
Let's see. Let me send you to the.
I got to do a copy.
It's an experimental hypothesis. You could click, and if you drop, you can rejoin, and then we know certainly.
If I do copy link and then go over here and do a paste link.
Hey Barry, just click it and just come
link,
back
then
if you
it'll be
drop.
okay. I have to be really careful on this machine. If I put in the wrong version of a Zoom, I'm in deep crud. There it is, paste. Battery tester operation. How battery tester work? Now I can turn around here and do share.
But Barry, one note that I was putting in the chat, aren't today's cameras on today's phones way better than any old webcam?
Yeah, the trouble is you have enough storage, memory storage on the phone to have a 1 hour or 2 hour recording. And
These
try to
phones
get
are
it out.
100 or 200 gigabytes now, right?
I know, but you can export it out and all that stuff. So anyway.
Yeah. So it measures the voltage and the current, which
Right.
which
That's a
means
simple one I'm talking about.
it knows the internal resistance.
Yeah.
So it basically says, well, this has high internal resistance, so the voltage is going to drop.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. See, the load tester. This is the one that puts a load on it.
Yeah, the load tester usually is for how long the battery will last.
Right. So anyway, stop share. This there was a Zoom update. I found that Zoom 14.7 worked on my El Capi 10, but don't ever click on a link in the chat, it'll crash. So then they came out with an update, Zoom 5.14.10 for the Mac, and that doesn't even load. If I click it, it says I don't run on this model.
Wow.
So there was 1 or 2 that would actually launch on El Capi 10 and run, but I have to be careful not to click that link or it'll kill it. Maybe at some point I will put Linux on this 2006 Mac Pro because El Capi 10 is, I can still, it still runs. I got another thing. I got this monitor in front of me. I think it's got a bad capacitor and it takes forever to warm up before I get a clean picture. And if I turn the power off for more than about 2 seconds, then I have to go through the whole warm up cycle again.
Yeah, capacitor.
I brought some capacitors home that I think are the right ones, and I opened it up. I opened this whole thing. I'm like, oh my God, there's like 14 capacitors. How do I know which one it is? The answer is I don't. I did the inspection to see if one of them has a little bulge in the capacitor.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't see a sufficiently indicative bulge of any one. They all look pretty flat. And so
I wonder if you can use a capacitor tester to test it.
Well, that's what I was researching yesterday. How do I test a capacitor in circuit?
Yep.
in such a way that I can reliably identify a bad capacitor.
You
And
gotta cut one side of the lead.
I
and solder it back.
without it soldering 14 capacitors to find. And I watched several videos, and they sort of talked a little bit about how you can do it, but not with enough detail that I could actually appreciate that I knew how to do it and I could get a reliable
Yeah,
indication. You can buy a special kind of multimeter that has a capacitance testing
Yeah.
function, but none of mine have that.
yeah.
So I have to do it the
The
hard way.
bottom line capacitor is that when you're in circuit, then the circuit will destroy the capacitor's reading for you.
Right.
That's all bottom line.
One idea is you put a scope on it when it was powered on. You put a scope, and if you see noisy
Right.
terminal, then you know, well, that's the capacitor that's acting erratically. But I don't have a scope here, so I might end up destroying this monitor if I take it apart one more time and try to find the bad capacitor and try to change it out. I might end up just blowing this monitor away entirely.
How big is the monitor?
How big?
Yeah. 21
Um,
inch.
Let's see, do I have it? Well, I can tell you the model number, but that should tell me what it is.
Oh, yeah.
It's an Asus Asus 266H, I think. I think it's like, it might be 26 inches. Let me just see. It's an Asus VK, Asus VK 266H. How big?
VK 266.
VK 266H. How big?
25.5 inch
Um,
HDMI.
yeah, well, so what's this? Yeah, 25.5 inch. Now that's diameter, I believe.
Yeah, diagonal.
That's the diameter of the actual
Diagonal.
display.
It's 20, we call it 26 inch monitor. 26 inch, 27 inch.
Yeah. I bought it. The one university was retiring a whole fleet of these, and they were getting rid of them for like, I don't know, $100 or something.
Mm.
So I got this one. This particular model is not say notorious, but it has this issue with bad capacitors after so many years, and then you get
Right.
a classical you get a snowy screen until it warms up.
Right.
And but I discovered that if you turn it on and you let it warm up for about 5 minutes originally,
Yeah.
and power it off and back on again, then it comes clean. But now it's down to like 15 minutes to warm it up. So I try not to have it go to sleep. If it goes to sleep, then I have to do a cold start again, and it takes 20 minutes to warm it up.
But you have two monitors, right? You don't need this monitor to turn it on, right? The computer.
This is the second. The thing is that this is the monitor that has the built-in webcam,
Oh, okay.
and that's why I have it in this direction. So the keyboard is this way on
Got
this
it.
monitor. And the one thing about this is the webcam does not involve the electronics. The webcam is just a wire to a connector at the bottom. So I can use the webcam even if this is unplugged or turned off.
I see.
Thing is that if I'm facing it, facing the webcam, I don't have a picture.
Mm,
So I can use it as a webcam. I sort of have to park it someplace where the webcam is facing where I want to be facing. Because
I guess the resolution is 1920 by 1200. So which is perfect for you for 27 inch with big text and all that.
yeah. So I'm going to be after the end of today's meeting, I'm going to risk it. I'm going to take it apart again, see if I can find the bad capacitor and see if I can replace it. And if I screw it up, then I've lost this monitor. If I do bad neurosurgery, I make it brain dead.
Hmm.
And so I've been limping along with the long warm up, because the long warm up, I can, if I just, the only problem is that if I'm 5 minutes before a meeting and I turn it on, I can't get a picture for the first 10 minutes of the meeting.
I'll send you a monitor. I'll figure out. I'm pretty sure I have some extra monitor later. I can send it to you.
Well, if you have a widescreen monitor, or even I mean, I have another one that's the 4x3 that I could also use. And actually, for what I use here, I could just swap out the 4x3 monitor.
Yeah, another monitor I have is when I travel around with this is a USB driven, powered by USB monitor. That's portable meter. I bring it with me when I travel. So the second monitor.
The other thing that I can do is I can cast the second monitor to. I have a third monitor to the left here that's on a different computer, but I could do screen sharing. I think, even though this one's Windows and this one's Mac, I could theoretically do screen sharing to a different computer with a different monitor.
You don't really need to do that. They actually have a lot of monitors have multiple input, have HDMI, VGA,
Right.
DVI, whatever that is. So all you do is switch the input on the monitor. You can switch input as you use with different computers. So you can leave the wire there and then switch the input for that monitor.
Yeah, I might need a switcher because I think I'm using.
You don't need a switch.
No,
Again,
no. TVs and monitors have those input
Yeah.
settings.
yeah, like HDMI 1, HDMI 2, like kind of input.
Yeah, but this one over here, I don't think it has any spare. I don't think it has any spare input.
What's the part number? What's the part number?
It's a Samsung. No, that's
It'll
not-
have it.
Samsung. Can I read the number here?
Yeah, part number.
It's a no.
Use a camera. Use a.
Oh,
look
it's a
at the
sync.
picture,
It's a
easier.
sync here.
Take a picture of the label,
Master-
Barry.
What's the
Sync
part number?
Master- I'm going to say it. Sync Master XL24.
XL24.
Samsung Sync Master XL24. And I have it hooked up to a gigabyte motherboard that's running.
Okay, so there's a 24-inch LED widescreen. Let me
How many
see.
inputs though does it have?
Give me a second here. Spec. Okay, got it. I found the spec now. So
How many inputs does a Samsung SL24 have?
XL Sync Master XL24.
you have a DVI input and a DVI in, DVI digital. I hate DVI. This thing here don't have HDMI connector.
Let me just see here. I can tip. This one rotates. You can tilt it. Let me just see. I can see. I think it's got two DVI.
Yeah, two DVI. You have a DVI-I and a DVI, the digital and analog version of DVI, which I hate. It's like drive me crazy. And your Mac probably doesn't have a DVI
I think
connector also.
it's only got the two. It's got the two DVI input.
Yeah, that's it.
Which, man, one of them is DVI analog and one's DVI digital.
Yeah, they call it DVI-I and DVI-D.
Oh, so the question is, if I have a single card coming out of the Mac Pro, they're going to both be the same DVI subcategory,
Well,
aren't they?
that's why I say I hate about DVI, because you gotta find a stupid cable that's is the right connector and
Right, it's a gazillion connector cable, isn't it? It's a big
yeah.
one.
So you probably use a DVI-D. I'm pretty sure you're using the DVI-D right now on the other computer. So you have only the DVI-I connector on the left. Your Mac will not drive a DVI-I unless you buy a connector that converter that's cost a couple $100. Like, no, it's not worth it.
Yeah, so the alternative is to cast the image by a remote, what do you call it? Remote desktop casting, or whatever the hell you call it.
Right, right. Yeah, you don't want to do that. It's a mess.
Yeah, that would be a stopgap solution.
Yeah,
We've spent more time on it than the monitors actually worth, I think.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, but I
Don't-
got nothing but time. Also, the thing is, Sam, I get a kick out of putting into service something that's technically obsolescent and broken.
Right.
I get more of a thrill out of solving the technical problem. But yes, it's very
Okay.
time consuming and
How
and
about
I-
you guys are both geeks? Can I ask you a different geek question? Can
Yeah,
I
sure.
change
Go for
the geek a little bit? this is a religious question in audiophiles and computerdom, okay? So computers, especially desktops, and then alternatively, amps and preamps and audio gear. Religious question: should I leave them on all the time or only when I'm using them?
Say again one more time.
The audio gear and computer gear, should I leave them on all the time or should I just turn them on when I'm using them?
Turn them on when you need it. Use it.
Well, don't
From
they
the
have a
electronics
sleep, don't they have a
life
sleep mode?
standpoint.
Don't they have a sleep mode?
Makes no difference.
So in
I
other
guess-
words, the amp, the theory is that the hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold cycles, that's what ages amp hardware. That's what I've read. Okay. So this is, again, religious people have different views on it.
It depends. If you use it every day, that's one thing. If you use it every week, once a week, I would turn it off for 6 days, turn it on for 1 day. But if
I
you're
use it
using
4 days a week. The audio gear.
okay, I would, if you're using it multiple hours, 4 days a week,
Yes.
and you're not
Contiguous 4
necessarily-
days.
the same 4 days every week.
Yeah.
Are they-
Friday
are-
through
are-
Monday. Friday through
are-
Monday.
Say again.
Friday through Monday is when I'm home.
All right, so I would turn it on and leave it on for those 4 days. And then at the end of the day on Monday, turn it off until the following Friday. I would turn it off for 4 days and on for 4 days because you're using it for 4 days in a row every day. So I would leave it on for those 4 days, and at the end of the 4 days, turn it off for 4 days or however many. No, it can't be
Okay.
like this. 3 days.
Thank you.
Whatever.
So what about the desktop computer then?
So these computers have a sleep mode. If I don't use them for like an hour or two, they'll go to sleep, which means that they'll stop sending a video to the monitor. So the monitors will go to sleep, and they will go into a mode which when I hit the keyboard or the mouse, they'll come back up to where I left off fast.
Okay. Thank you. Sam Chen, what's your opinion?
I don't really pay attention to turn off or turn on. So whatever is convenient for me works. For me, it's just the power, like Barry was saying, so sleep mode, especially a new computer. But if you have a very old computer like Barry does, so it may not have the sleep mode really fully implemented. And sometimes what I'm saying is that the sleep mode in terms of software and sort of hardware, a lot of time is flaky, so I don't really depend on the sleep mode, all that stuff. So if you have the latest equipment like mine does, then the sleep mode is working perfectly. That's good. I would say the sleep mode actually working properly based on my experience. I would say since the last 3 years, or if you have 3 years old machine or newer machine, the sleep mode works really well.
Okay. So this is where I'm going to forget about the computers because computers are very easily replaceable is what I found. Okay. Unless
Right.
you're like a collector of 30 or 40-year-old computers.
Right.
However, the audio equipment is very different. I use a lot of very old, high quality amps and preamps, and
Tubes,
those are
tubes.
much harder to find and harder to replace.
Are you
Right.
using a vacuum tube? Old
Not yet.
vacuum?
I'm not there yet.
Okay,
But I've
because
got-
vacuum tubes, you definitely don't want to leave the filament running for hours not using it,
Yep.
Okay.
because you're
So-
gonna basically burn out your vacuum tubes.
When I
pretty
can
fast.
do that, I will remember that. But right now, I still have solid state amps and preamps or whatever. So
Yeah.
I have an AdCom, which is kind of high low end. It's not super high end, but it's high low end. Okay, it's like a 250 watt per channel amp. And
Yeah, but the thing is it's not using 250 watts if you don't have an input signal active, does it?
no, it's basically rated at that for capacity because I've only got 110 into it. I'm not running a 220 amp. Not there yet either.
No,
Okay?
that you said watts.
Watt per channel, yeah,
Watt per
capacity.
channel. All right.
at peak. So
Yes.
the question is, since I want to preserve the life of that kind of equipment, that's just one example.
Yeah.
Those audio pieces of gear are what I'm worried about from a life cycle standpoint. Okay. So that's the stuff that I care about. I don't so much care about computers because I pretty much upgrade them.
Okay, so that's good. I like it. One focus is better. So anyway, the answer is on the chat you can read it.
Okay.
Three
In
channels.
practice with modern solid state amplifiers are usually negligible. Okay. Okay, so this is, I'm gonna go into this. I just thought you guys would, have some interesting takes on this because I want this to be true over decades.
Yeah.
So that's about the life cycle of
I
it.
would simply say, if you're going to not use it for 3 or 4 days in a row, turn it off. If you're going to use it every day for a certain number of days in a row, I would just leave it on 24/7 for that
Okay.
segment of time.
Noted.
Well, basically, it's the way I think about it is you basically chunk it down to 3 different factors. So one is for example, the vacuum tube, right? You have 1,000 hours of usage time. So that's one variable, that's
Yep.
parameter, whatever you call it. The second is the power up, power down, the rush, the impulse of power,
Surge. You get
the
a surge.
the
Right.
what it does to the component. So it's the impact of it. It's like
That's right.
like think of the car, the starter, right? The starter power, right? So that's that. And the other thing is, of course, is the combination of all that together. How do you optimize? The way that I think about it is really straightforward. I usually ask the manufacturer because they have an MTBF cycle, whatever you want to call that, time between
Failure. Yeah.
Yeah. So you ask the manufacturers like, okay, for this equipment, should I leave it on? Should I turn off? I cannot authorize. I mean, I have the authority in that complex analysis.
Okay, good. I'll do that. Some of these pieces of gear are from companies that no longer exist, but that's a good piece of advice. That's good.
Right. Most of these systems, if they go to sleep, they'll take the state of the RAM and they'll put the state of the RAM into the swap.
Computers, yeah, I understand that.
Right. And that's very nice because when you hit it and it comes back to life, it just has to read out, 16 or however many gigabytes of RAM, off the swap disk back in, and you're back in business.
Understand.
Complete power off.
And one more fact before I forget is that when you turn off an expensive piece of equipment, you're cutting off your circuitry from the rest of the could be harmful lightning strike surges as well. So
Oh, and the other thing,
I have it behind a brownout circuit, by the way. Just
the other thing that's nice is that most Windows machines, and maybe this is true for Mac and Linux, but Windows machines, you can set daytime hours and nighttime hours, and they will come on during the sleep cycle. They'll come on to check for updates at certain middle of the night, and they'll download the update in the middle of the night. So I will see that these computers, that even if they're asleep, I will see that they come to life. The fan will come on for a little bit of time, checking for updates and doing the updates automatically, and then going back to sleep.
Yeah. So
I do see them automatically waking up to check for updates during the sleep downtime.
Yeah.
So for the record, Windows is the least interesting to me because most of my machines are Linux, and I've got like 2 or 3 Mac machines now.
I don't know if Linux
Windows machine simply because I need it for work.
I don't know if Linux has that feature of waking up in the middle of the night.
Linux has pioneered a lot of things that you see in Macintosh and Windows, by the way. The whole idea of an app store, by the way, came from Linux. The whole idea of a dock, especially the one that's animated, on the Mac, that came from Linux.
Yeah.
A lot of innovation happens on Linux. So all this power management stuff, I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't verified it directly, but I bet a lot of it has come from Linux.
So automatic updates in the middle of the night is a really nice feature because then it doesn't want to update when you bring it up in the morning.
I don't even use that anymore. I use a rolling release. Okay, so no more service packs, for me.
Okay, yeah, but those are the issues, the power cycling, the power on time, and the update, whether you have to babysit the update or not. Unattended updates are nice, especially if there's 3 o'clock in the morning.
I can't believe though. Yeah, it seems so stupid. We actually have an operations group at work that sometimes gets interfered with because of these scheduled automated OS updates. And I don't know why they don't turn that stuff off.
The damn thing is you're giving a presentation in a meeting and your
Exactly,
bloody computer wants to do an update
all
in the middle
kind
of the presentation.
Yeah. All that kind of bullshit. Yeah.
So,
except now I think PowerPoint has just gotten smart enough to say, oh, don't do these background things when I'm giving a presentation. I think PowerPoint now has that feature.
Yeah, well, there is a pause. For example, in Windows Update, there's a pause for 7 days option. if you go to the Windows Update, you can elect to pause the updates indefinitely or pause them for like 7 days.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I turned this one to pause, and then I forgot about it for 6 months. So for 6 months, it wasn't doing any updates because I had it in pause mode. I didn't realize.
Barry, in my opinion, you will come to know and love the joys of Linux once you find yourself ready.
Oh, I
for
have
that.
Linux. I've been using Linux since the
Yeah,
belt.
but
Linux. I've been
we're
using
rolling
Linux.
release. Don't use one of these standard, Canonical or Ubuntu or.
I've got
Of course,
Lubuntu.
I like
I've got Peppermint. I've got BSD. I've got at least 4 flavors of Linux or Unix.
BSD is not Linux.
I know Linux is Linus Torvalds, but it's still Unix. I've got 4 species of Unix: NetBSD, Solaris, and Lubuntu and Peppermint, and I don't know.
Lubuntu is not bad. Stick with Lubuntu.
Well, I think I put Lubuntu
now.
on these really like this little guy here, which is right now running Windows 7.
Yeah.
It also has a 2016 version of Lubuntu on it. And I typically will run them up to about 2016 if they're that old, because this was an XP era machine.
Yeah.
And 2016 Lubuntu is nice for that, something that old.
Yep.
With 2 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, it's not for nothing that all the web services out there on the cloud these days are all Linux powered, except for like a very minuscule set, but almost every single one is Linux powered.
Yeah,
it's a good reason for that.
I mean, I keep Windows available because some of the people who like to game online, the game software only runs on Linux. There's not a Macintosh version at all, or the Macintosh version doesn't going to run on El Capitan. It wants a more recent version of the operating system.
But Barry, if you're gaming, you wouldn't be on such old hardware, okay? If you're serious about gaming.
Well, the thing is that the game is running on a server, so I'm just displaying.
No, but you still need the response time. You still need the display speed. Yeah. You still need to be able to, refresh quickly. All those things are important for games.
Yeah, but the one time that we do game, I use this Gigabyte Windows machine because it does run on that. And the reason I use this one, the guy who likes to run the games, he gave me his older GPU. So this has a humongous GPU on the motherboard, which is the main reason that I'm using this, because it's got the high-end GPU. The Macintosh has got, I don't know, 10 or 15-year-old GPU. It wouldn't do the animation of the game anyway.
So 2 more pieces of trivia for Sam Chan, the hardware geek. I have to share with you, I wasted a lot of money on something called Windows for Pen Computing. Do you remember what that was?
Yeah.
I think that was a version of Windows 3.1 something that was supposedly optimized for pen. Right. There was a company called Momenta, I believe, that had a super thick laptop. It cost me like $3,500 to buy it from somebody. It is completely useless. Completely useless in the late 80s or early 90s.
Yeah.
It's a waste of bleeping money. So that's one. And since you actually buy the first version of everything, did you ever buy the Apple Newton when it was new?
Yeah, I did.
I'm sorry for you also there on that part.
Well, again, I'm not worried about wasting money.
I know you're learning. I get it. That's why I bought that stuff. Okay. Yeah. I'm trying to learn the steady.
I want to tell you a story about Momenta. Okay,
good. Yes.
You'll love this.
You're one of the few that actually recognize that company, by the way.
Of course. Let me tell you this story. So I was flying to Indiana, going to Ohio to go to DESI, Defense Equipment Supply Center in Ohio, Dayton, Ohio. So anyway,
what year was this?
Yeah. 80, I forgot what year was it. Whatever the year that you bought your Momenta.
Yeah. It was only around for that split.
Yeah, moment, right. And the funny thing is this, the funniest thing of all is that I was sitting right next to a young lady, a beautiful young lady. And I don't know how, and that she get to trust me, right? And she asked me, like, because she's just have a long day interview. She fly from New York, right? So she was trying to interview with them, and they hire her to come to be to work for her Momenta. And she asked my opinion, what I think about it. I said, you want a short answer? You want a long answer? You know, we have like, I remember like 4 hours of flight or one, you know, so I say, she said, they give me a short answer first. I say, no, I will not take that job. And then she said, okay, now give me the long answer. I say, it's pretty straightforward. In order to have voice recognition, think of it like, start off with something we can learn from. It's like OCR, right? You know how long it takes us to get the perfect OCR that's black and white and the pixel is fixed? It takes a long time.
Yep.
So as far as I'm concerned, even the United States government decided to put billions of dollars on voice recognition and pen computer, all that stuff, for it to recognize it. It's not going to happen because the technology, the hardware is not there, the technology is not there yet, right? So it will be at least 10 years before you can see that company be going anywhere. So it's like, of course, she didn't take that job. So I think
She did or she did not?
She did not. She trusts me. She trusts me. Says that they're not taking the job. So I say, when you bought the computer, I know it's not going anywhere with it.
I know. By the way, had she been offered that job?
Yeah, she has. She have the. That's what happened
because of your conversation. Okay.
And then she turned it down.
Her life for the better. Yeah.
Yeah. The life better. It's like,
you should find out what she's doing now. Company.
Yeah, because I say, what happened was the company. I'm not sure you know so much about detail. Not she was impressing me because she said that was the founder for Sun Micro. He left. I think it's an Indian guy, right? He left the company to start this company. So
it wasn't Vinod Khosla, was it? It was somebody else.
I don't remember, but it was the founder of the or one of the founders, early founder, sometimes maybe co-founder, but he's the main founder of the Sun Microsystem that left Sun so that he opened this Momenta company to like, like a new revolution. Yeah. The timing, I say it's a good idea. It's a great potential, but timing is off.
Yeah.
You don't have time for that.
Can I tell you a story about voice computing?
Yeah.
Since you mentioned it. In 1976, I graduated high school.
Right.
And I had a summer job. And this is Seattle, by the way. I graduated from Lakeside High School here in Seattle. So I had a summer job near Mount Rainier for about 6 or 8 weeks during the summer, getting paid $2.10 an hour. Okay. But at the end of the summer, there's still some 2 or 3 weeks between then and when college started. Okay. So before I went off to college, I went back to my dad's place in Albuquerque. And so I was going to go from there to Stanford, but my dad and I ended up having some conflicts. So I ended up really trying to get out of there. And my mom was in Pittsburgh at the time. So she said, just come out here for a couple of weeks, spend some time with me before you go to Stanford. My mom was going through a residency because she had just gotten board certified to practice again here in the United States as a doctor. So I went out to Pittsburgh to go live with my mom for about 2 or 3 weeks. And my mom didn't have time. She was working, so she couldn't take care of me. And then she had to find things for me to do. So she went to a friend of hers at Carnegie Mellon University, CMU, named H.T. Kung. I don't know if you know that name, but H.T. Kung, very famous in hardware. He basically invented systolic processing. It's a kind of parallel array processing. But so he, because he was friends with my mom, by the way, he's world famous, he took a day to show me around CMU. And because he was busy, he put me in a couple of product demos that day. It turned out that very day was when a project called Hearsay and a project called Harpy at CMU were being demonstrated. Harpy and Hearsay were funded by DARPA as some of the very first demonstrable voice recognition systems. Voice recognition, 1976. This is probably August or September of 1976.
Yeah, early stage.
So I actually got to hear presentations about the architecture. I was just graduating high school, but they were talking about blackboard models and how they went from levels of abstraction, from raw input to actual, tokenization and stemming and voice recognition and vocabularies, etc. So I got to see live the first public demonstration of Harpy and Hearsay. DARPA funded, high school kid among all these other college and professor age, people at Carnegie Mellon University. And I didn't know Carnegie Mellon from, some community college. Okay. But later on, of course, it's one of the top 3
Right.
schools in the country. So anyway, that was my brush with voice recognition. And I've been
Nice.
waiting for it ever since 1976. And it's taken decades before it
Yeah.
became practical and usable.
Yep.
So anyway, that's my brief little story, not so brief.
Thank you. Let me tell you the story about voice recognition then.
Yep.
My story. So I started back in 1990s, in the 90s. Yeah. So I have my company and I set up one of the very first internet company with sell hardware and software stuff like that. So I was ready. I know that the solution is to be able to automate the voice recognition into the phone, so that the automated attendant will be able to take orders and answer questions, all that stuff. So I was ready to invest a couple $1 million on whatever I need. I don't know where the money can come from, but I thought of exploring it. So I was in the headquarters of Dragon. What do you call that? Dragon
Speaking or Dragon Dictation.
Dragon Detection. Yeah, the headquarters. They do a full demonstration for me, and they give me what it can and what it cannot do and all that stuff. It said need training, all that stuff. It must have been at least a 2-hour demonstration of the latest, and before anybody else get their hands on it, I was the first one to stick my hand into it and explore the technology. And my decision is I'm walking away.
Yeah,
And I'm glad
the
I
whole
did.
interaction model with voice command.
Yeah,
very-
auto attend. They call it auto attendant, auto everything. It's like
Yep.
I say, it would take another 10 years before you get anywhere at all. And even
Longer.
today, people hang up on those kind of things. And it's like, no, I'm not going to invest my money and time and resources. I was in Dragon's headquarters going through. They say, Sam, you're the first customer that we show this equipment and hardware to. From like AT&T was one of their customers, by the way, at that time.
Yeah, maybe Barry did as well. Okay, can I tell one more small story about that one? See, the first story I told you was 1976.
Right.
In about 1980 and 1981, I started my first job. It was June of 1980. And one of the guys that I hung out with a lot, who's probably at least 15, 16 years older than me,
Okay.
he got me interested in personal computers. Now, this is way before PCs became popular.
81, I know.
So what we did was we took S100 cards. I don't know if you know what S100 cards are. They were IEEE 696 standard, called S100 because they had 100 connectors on a
Okay.
pin. And you stick these cards into what's called a mainframe with a lot of these, female connectors. So you can put together any computer you want there. You can put in memory, you can put in disk controllers, you can put in CPUs, you can put in video controllers, you can put in floppy disk controllers,
Yep.
everything, okay? And these mainframes, did you ever watch what was the movie that had global thermonuclear war? War Games. Remember War?
Okay. Yeah.
You remember the computer that the kid had? It was a little flashing box, with flip levers or whatever. That was an old MSI/Fulcrum machine. I had 2 of those. Those were S100 computers. Okay. So in 1981, 82, I was putting together these computers, and the way to customize these, by the way, you had to solder these jumpers from one, connection to another.
I have breadboard.
Exactly. Wasn't quite a breadboard. It was an actual, green circuit board, but you still had to, put jumpers in or solder these things together.
Between the breadboard and the full PCB.
That's right. Okay, something like that. So anyway, I had a voice recognition S100 card back in 1982 or 3 or 4,
Wow.
sometime early 80s, that could recognize any combination of 64 spoken syllables. Okay. So
Wow.
it could discern 64 utterances, and depending on what you loaded the memory with, it could recognize another 64. So you could recognize a word and then say, okay, that word probably then leads to these combinations. So you can load it up with another 64. Then based on that, you load it up with another 64. Okay. Now, if I had deep learning back then, I could recognize anything. But anyway, it was fun to experiment.
Yeah,
Voice
beautiful.
recognition in the early 80s.
Yeah, I know. 81, I was in Ohio State, winter time. That's my first quarter in Ohio
Wait,
State.
you will graduate Ohio State?
Yeah, Ohio State. Yeah.
Oh man. I got another story to tell you after you tell this story.
Well, basically, the bottom line is this, I have a degree in double E in computer science option
Mhm.
at 242 credit hours that most of my classmates graduated in 6 years. I finished in 3 because I had no money I have to rush it and all that stuff. So, long story short, I learned so much about the hardware design and the software design. My biggest gift, I would say, is that there's a couple of them, multiple of them, but the most important one is I was using the 64,000 HP system that is, I'm not sure you know, it's a hardware emulator machine. Think of a machine that is like allow you to emulate it, so you can use 6800 or 6808, 8808, 80 or the 8800.
Wait, this was
CPU
1981? It doesn't sound possible in 1981.
in 1984.
Ah, wait.
And it's 83. 83 is my senior year. 83 is my senior year. Anyway, I'll give you the information. Basically, it's a HP build emulator. Think of it like an emulator that allow you to build machine and do all of that things. So that's
right. So you could interpret different.
So you get yourself, you can write assembly code in the machine, all that stuff. So that's one important class. The other one is my computer science class, which is using PL1. Okay. To write an emulation of the the deck. I forgot what's the number now. The deck.
Deck 20.
Oh.
PDP 11.
PDP 11. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. PL. Can you imagine using PL1 mainframe to write
emulate
PL1 emulator?
Yeah. What was the clock speed on that CPU?
That was like, wow. Yeah.
PDP 11 that I worked on.
Now that I think about it, is that, Barry, I want to share with you is that because of my emulator class on the CPU, so when I think of it, I want to communicate with someone, I'm emulating this person as a person instead of a CPU. That's how you pace a person, a humanity, and all that stuff in there. So what do I need to change internally in my CPU so that I can be pretending like I'm that CPU?
Yeah, I played around with emulators back when you had 3 or 4 generations of technologies. The problem is they always ran so damn slow. It would bring up an operating system from an old technology, but it ran so freaking slow that you'd be Methuselah by the time you finished running an application on it.
By the way, today's emulators can run all those 80s and 90s game consoles and CPUs faster than they used to run before.
That's actually a problem because those
they had timing. They had specific timing. Yes.
Yeah, you couldn't hack the clock to run slower so that you could actually see
what's happening
so bloody fast you couldn't follow it.
Yeah.
You hack the clock.
Anyway, the computer science class is when I met my wife, by the way.
Ah.
Yeah, because she worked until like 10:30 in a restaurant, and I have to wait for her in the parking lot until she showed up. So we go into this super cold IBM mainframe room, write our program.
What? And did what, Sam? I'm just kidding.
Super cold, nothing happened. You're freezing.
You didn't have to work with punch cards, did you? I still had classes.
I missed it by once. If I take the class 1 quarter before that, I would have punch card, and because I took it 1 class after the punch card was that was retired.
I had to take 1 class and I said, never again. I'm never doing a punch card class ever again.
Yeah, I see the big punch card block was dropped on the floor. I was like, okay.
Right.
I avoided COBOL. I avoided Fortran. I avoided what else? Oh, small talk. I just missed that because I don't see any future in it. I have to talk to my advisor to let me avoid it because I don't see a future in it. So avoided Fortran, avoided COBOL, avoided small talk. Yeah.
But small talk was the paradigm for decades, unfortunately.
I don't see a future in it at the time. The funny thing is that the first week I was in Ohio State in winter 1981, the first week I went to ask permission to talk to the dean of the college, right? I had spent an hour with him in his office to see should I focus, because I plan my future, right? Should I focus on, do I want to get PhD here? Because PhD is the big thing, right? You know, all that stuff. And after the 1 hour conversation, nope, I don't need PhD. I don't need master. I'm good in BS degree. I decided on the first week of the class. Yeah.
Yep. I'm a disappointment to my dad because I don't have a PhD myself.
And I'm glad I don't have PhD. So,
Yep.
I mean, it's
So-
not that PhD is bad for me. It's just that it's not the best use of my time. That's all it
Sure.
is.
You had your life, you know, direction set up. Hey,
Yeah.
so let me tie this back to a post that I made that's actually related to this the CSG / co-sense making business. This week, Barry, is that okay?
Yeah, I'm basically stopped listening because you were talking faster than I can listen anyway. So
Oh, but it's right down your alley. It's old hardware.
yeah, I know.
Sorry.
Okay. So I made a post this week that Barry responded to, and I was going to ask Barry about it. Okay. And the post is, let me see.
Can you send me the link?
Yeah, I'm going to find it first. I will. Let me see where that is. I should have found it already. But it was about, I put 2 posts in there about science. I said, geez, let me find it first. Otherwise, I'm going to misquote myself.
Is that the one that 2 hours ago or what?
No. It was like yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, I found one from 15 hours ago.
Yeah,
Thanks
the
for
Barry
your comment,
responded.
Barry. What every Republican needs to hear, this is a message. That
Yeah,
maybe that's not the
I
one.
listened to that one. It's too much for me.
Yeah, that maybe that's not the one that Sam had.
No,
in
that's
mind.
not the one. It's a blue and white posting. I spoke too soon. I should find it first before I raise it here.
Tell me what it was. The
You
basic.
responded as, and I didn't understand your response, so that was why I was going to ask it here.
Is this in the Collaborology discussion group?
It's
Where
either
is-
in Collaborology or it's in my own wall.
Oh, well, let me look in your.
Oh, here we go. It is this. Okay, I'm going to read it and I'm going to send you the link right now. Hold on. Open link, save link, copy link address. Okay, here we go. I'm going to put it in the chat. There we go. Okay, but I will read it, okay, for the record here.
Holy shit.
It says, a big item of faith in science, and I have double quotes around item of faith, is that the universe is the same here as it is there, and is the same now as it was then, or will be, but I hold open the possibility that even this item of faith can be interrogated and investigated. In other words, it's the closest thing in science that comes to an item of faith, but even there, I still say we can still study it. So, Barry, you had responded and said that's at best true at the level of fundamental particles, and then you can read the rest of your response. And I didn't actually understand that response. So that's what I was going to ask you. He said, as soon as you begin to aggregate the fundamental particles, you begin to have emergent systems with emergent properties. Yes, I get that. That's what chemistry is. That's what biology is, etc. What are the 7 days of, okay. That's why it's interesting to observe how new structures and new systems come into being over the 14.3 billion years of the coming of age of the cosmos to the state we find it today. And so I clarified later, because Mark Denny brought it up. I said, by the same here, I mean that the laws of physics are the same here as it is there, as it is then, as it was now, was then, as it is now, as it will be in the future. That's what it really meant, is that the laws of physics are the same here as it is there. Now, the reason I wanted to tell the story is because a friend of mine that I know from high school, who I've not actually spoken to in probably 40 plus years, he's a professor of physics at Ohio State University. His name is Greg Kilcup. And he, of all these 40 years of postings, actually, no, I haven't been on Facebook that long, but all the 40 years of stuff I've been doing, this is where he chose to reconnect with me. So he has a comment on this post that starts with, Sam, comma, you are correct, comma. And it talks about Paul Dirac, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot of other posts here that, question, what I'm saying. But I thought it was curious, and I actually have to take a little bit of recognition that I have some ego still. Is I was happy that he responded and corroborated this position that I was posting here. So I didn't understand your post, your response, Barry. I wanted to get your take on it. Over.
The one that you read, the one I wrote 2 days ago.
Yes, that's at best true at the level of fundamental particles. That one.
Yeah. So, yeah. So the notion that Einstein and others had is that the laws of physics, which are discoverable, and any two observers should be able to get the same discovery. If two different observers are getting a different discovery, then there's something wrong with the process.
Right. That's the whole idea of repeatable experimentation, right?
But that's in the here and now. Now, if the two observers are very far apart in time or space,
yes.
For example, if one of the observers is right outside a black hole, he might not got the same answer that Newton got. In fact, he wouldn't have gotten the same answer that Newton got. And if you're inside of a black hole, which we don't know how to be inside of one,
right?
Then maybe they would get very different laws of physics, because we don't know the laws of physics inside of a black hole. We can speculate. So if you're very far apart in time, like if you're very near the 14.3 billion years ago, or if you're very far apart in space, like near the surface of a black hole, we don't actually know if two observers would in fact discover the same laws, because we
That's
know
the point I was making. That's the point I was making in this post. But there's a but there. The but is, it's still useful to ask the question, is it or is it not the same now as it was then? And it's interrogable. It's investigable. And that is my point about science. Over.
So for example, it was only very recently that we could test the suggestion that there's such a thing as gravitational waves. And and it took them, I don't know, 30 years to figure out the concept of LIGO and to build one. And it had to be about a mile long in perpendicular directions. And then we found, yes, you can now confirm the hypothesis, the theory of gravitational waves. Now, there's a next notion that gravitational waves are not just analog, they could even be quantifiable,
Quantizable.
Now, here's the problem. So the best that we can think of doing today to measure quantum gravity models is you would need not a LIGO that's a mile long, but a measurement device that's as big as the diameter of the Milky Way. And so right now, we don't have a way to measure inside a black hole or to measure quantum gravity because we can't build a device that's big enough, long enough, the size of the Milky Way, or in CERN, you can build a device that's, a certain amount of energy, and beyond that energy domain, you can't do any measurements. So there's the issue of we don't have the affordance of doing an experiment, either because we can't build a device big enough or powerful enough on the surface of the Earth, or even, in the size of the cosmos. So we don't know. But we still believe the notion that two observers who are capable of making an observation, if they're both capable of doing an observation, then they should get the same answer. Problem is that here and now, 14.3 billion years on the surface of the Earth, on the solar system, and the Milky Way, there are some things we simply can't take an observation of. Period. We don't have the technology to make an observation. It's some arcane, esoteric domain.
Yep. But it's worth a follow-up, though, Barry, to say at least we can imagine asking the question.
Oh,
At
yeah.
least we can imagine the level of precision we need at the scale of a galaxy, or the fantastically higher sensitivity you would need at smaller device sizes.
Right.
That you could at least still ask the question.
Of course, you can ask the
That's
question.
cool about science. You can still ask the question. By asking the question, I mean is designing an experiment, designing a sensor reading or an instrument.
I can ask the question, what happened in the first femtosecond after the Big Bang?
Yes.
Can I design an experiment that will answer that question? I don't know how, because how are you going to get a condition that's 1 femtosecond after the Big Bang to take a measurement? It's gone. The opportunity is gone.
Well, you could say, what if I replicate the Big Bang? You at least could ask those kind of questions.
You can ask all. You
Big
can ask
Bang.
if there's a multiverse. Are the constants of nature the same in a
Yes.
different universe?
Oh,
of
by the way,
well, you can ask the question: how the hell are you going to take a measurement?
and this is the point that Greg also brought up. Okay, that's the one remaining question there. So I thought it was actually an interesting response. It was a very fascinating response that after 45 plus years, he basically says what? By studying molecular spectra in very distant and ancient galaxies, we know that some fundamental parameters have remained the same to a fantastically small precision. But it is very plausible that other less fundamental quantities, such as the cosmological constant,
Exactly.
have varied over time, just as
Yes.
the size and the temperature of the universe have evolved.
Yes.
See?
Yeah. The
Cool.
cosmological constant is not known to be a constant. It's measurable, but it may not be a constant. We
Is
don't.
that
we don't know for
137
sure.
point something?
Sorry?
Is that
Say what?
137?
Say that again. I didn't get.
Is
the
that
meaning.
137?
Oh, the 1/137 fine structure constant.
Yes. Is that the one he's talking about?
No, I don't believe that the fine structure constant. That's the one we've measured to bazillion decimal places.
Yeah.
And that's the most precise known constant there is. And because we know it to lots of decimal places, we should be able to tell if it's changing slowly in time. As far as I know, it's not. But the cosmological constant, which has to do with the rate of expansion of the cosmos, we're pretty sure that the cosmos is expanding at an increasing rate currently. But if you say, how big is the cosmos expanding back at the beginning and the intermediate and now, the rate of expansion appears not to be a constant, and it appears to be accelerating currently. So the cosmological constant is not a constant. This is the Hubble constant. The Hubble constant is not a constant. Within our lifetime, within Hubble's lifetime, it was not known to be changing. Now we have evidence that the Hubble constant does change over time. Also, dark matter. We can create all kinds of hypotheses about its axions or whatever they are, or its neutrinos. We don't have any way to interact with dark matter at a level of interaction that is anywhere near taking a measurement, taking an observation. Mm-hmm. So you can make all kinds of theories about dark matter. You can see that the rotation of a galaxy is at a speed that's inconsistent with the amount of known visible matter. But how the hell can you make an observation about dark matter if it doesn't interact? It's like neutrinos. They were really hard to detect because they hardly interact with anything.
Well, we can still find them.
Yeah, we can. So you get them at a statistical level. So if you get a bazillion neutrinos, you might be able to capture one of them.
Yeah.
And the problem is that neutrinos seem to be able to vary between 3 flavors. They can modulate to 3 different masses or something or other. And again,
I thought they had no mass.
No, neutrinos have mass. And there are three flavors of neutrinos, and they can evidently change flavor in flight. But if they're changing flavor in flight, which is one of the theories that seems to be valid, how the hell do you measure that? Because you can only measure that when they arrive here. You can't measure them in flight because they travel at damn near the speed of light. So you have all these things where we don't have any obvious way to measure the details that the theory supposes. And so there's lots of those. And if you listen to Sabine Hassenfelder, she'll tell you in some of her videos about the things that we'd love to be able to measure to resolve competing theories, but for a variety of practical reasons or impossible reasons, you can't measure what you want to measure. It was like that speed of light thing with the one in Italy, where the difference in the speed of light for neutrinos or something or other versus photons, the error, the discrepancy in the hardware created a big error in the speed that screwed up the thing you were trying to measure.
That lasted weeks. I remember
Yeah,
that.
it took them a long time to find that, there was a fiber optic cable that had a slightly bad connection, and it was jittery or something in the connection of some cable. And these things either take forever to find and fix, or they're beyond the state of the art of the measurement technology. So we don't know if they're constant.
Anyway, the point I was trying to make with that is that no matter what you think and cogitate on or hypothesize, it's at least something you could imagine querying. You could at least
You can ask, is time travel possible? You can ask the question, is it possible to have time travel backwards in time? Not forwards in time. Yeah, you can travel forwards in time because
we are doing that right now.
right. And also, if you travel at a high speed, you can also change the rate at which you're aging in time compared to.
Yes.
Okay, so you can do experiments on time travel into the future, slowing it down or speeding it up. Going backwards in time, we don't know how to formally prove or disprove that. We assume that it's not possible because it gets to paradoxes which seem, logically impossible. But there's no way to do, there's no known way to do an experiment that goes back in time. But who wrote the Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court?
Mark Twain, right?
Mark Twain. So Mark Twain can not only imagine going backwards in time, he can write a very interesting short story about going backwards. So you can imagine all kinds of imaginary worlds, no problem. The question is, how can you demonstrably prove that those are pure imagination and not physically realizable? Sometimes you can show that they're total illogical fantasies, and sometimes you can't resolve it.
Anyway, my last statement, which was everything in science is interrogable, or questionable, or at least experimentable.
Up to a point.
Up to a pretty darn good point, and that point keeps being pushed further and further and further. It's what I like about science, and it's what I like about listening to nature, and I'll stop there.
But you can also ask about living systems, because living systems, including highly evolved living systems like sperm whales, not Homo sapiens, but sperm whales, you can ask about the emergent property of neural networks, whether they're organic carbon neural networks or silicon artificial neural networks. You can ask, what's the emergent property of these complex systems? Because complex systems can have properties that are measurable and modelable, but you can't derive them from first principles because it depends on the assemblage of bazillions of tiny subatomic particles to make a very complex system, and very complex systems have measurable observable properties that are not derivable because there's a bazillion ways that it could have made living systems or technology systems. So you can't predict them. This is the point, that even if you have deterministic models at the fundamental level, the tiniest perturbation in the initial conditions gives dramatically different behavior at the macro level. So even if you have a deterministic mathematical model, you can't make a prediction because you can't get the initial conditions to an infinite number of decimal places, which is what you would need. If the initial conditions are off by the 27th decimal place, then after such amount of time, the evolution is completely different. This is the weather and all that other. Fractals, tiny perturbation, initial conditions. I don't care how deterministic the model is, you can't predict very far in the future. That's the butterfly curve.
Mute. Sam, you're muted.
Sorry, Barry. So is that your elaboration of your comment to my post?
I don't know.
I don't. To reconfirm.
The answer is I don't know if it improves your understanding of what I wrote, or if it adds to beyond what I wrote. It's simply more. I can simply say,
so
I can say more and more and more beyond what I wrote, and maybe I'll even confuse you more, or maybe I'll clarify you more. And that's something I can't predict, because I can't predict the behavior of your understanding of English language, which is a fucking idiotically,
Hey, it's the best we got.
sloppy language.
It's the best we got, Barry. So I'm gonna.
Right.
This is my takeaway. In other words, if I clarify, which I did subsequently in that post, that what I meant was that the laws of physics we assume are constant. Okay, then at least what I understand you saying is there are emergent behaviors
Yeah.
that are not observed at certain scales that are observed at other scales. That I get. That I completely get. That's why we have the different sciences. Okay.
Right. Right.
And so long as that's the interpretation, then I'm completely clear now on your response.
And the constants of nature may or may not truly be constant.
Got it.
The things that we have
Got it.
measured as like this, the speed of light, we're pretty sure that really is a constant. But there are other things that we're not sure that they really are, like the expansion of the universe. We're pretty sure that's not a constant, even though we thought it was a constant. Hubble thought it was a constant. So the question of whether a constant is slowly changing with conditions like with gravity, for example, the rate at which a clock ticks, we now know that clocks, unlike what Newton thought, clocks do not tick at a fixed rate everywhere and everywhere. The rate at which they tick depends on the motion of the clock and the gravity, the acceleration of gravity and the location of the clock. So starting with Einstein, we had to throw away Newton's idea that all clocks tick at the same rate everywhere and everywhere. So the rate at which clocks tick is now not a constant, not a universal constant. How many other constants aren't constant, that they vary like with speed or local gravity?
And if they're not, are they fundamental?
Yeah, so timekeeping is an emergent property.
Yep.
I think it's correct to say it's an emergent property, and it's an emergent property of the environment that the clock resides in.
Yep.
So time is what a clock measures, but no two clocks measure the same time. It's local. Timekeeping is local and varies from one observer to the next. That's relativity. Timekeeping varies from one observer to the next. That was a huge discovery of Einstein in the general relativity. That was not special relativity. Clocks all run at the same time. General relativity, no, they don't. Now gravity matters. You can't ignore gravity. That's a big deal. And a lot of quantum mechanics was based on mathematics that assumed that timekeeping was the same here and there. And if you say, oh no, when this Bell inequality pair of particles are moving apart, the heartbeat of this one is not in sync with the heartbeat of that one anymore, because they're not in the same gravitational field anymore. So they're not in phase lock sync, beep, 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 beep. They're not per keep time. They start keeping independent time and they get out of phase. That's a big deal. John Bell assumed that they're going to stay in phase forever.
So Barry, thanks for
sorry, John.
elaborating on that, because that was the piece that I wanted to clarify. And now I think I understand. It's the emergence is assumed. The emergence is accepted. I get that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's
So-
not yellow, which
So if I'm taking the integral sum of two things which are 180 degrees out of phase, they're always going to, whatever it is here at this time and position, its mirror image is exactly 180 degrees out of phase. They're going to integrate to zero. But if their timekeeping is independent, they're going to get a beat frequency. Now you know what a beat frequency is.
Well-
John Bell assumed zero beat. There's going to be zero beat forever. Sorry, John Bell. You're not going to get zero beat forever. You're going to get a beat frequency.
Okay. It's past 10. So the question I'm about to ask, we can probably postpone till next session.
So we can
But
think
you
about
had
it.
posted something, Barry, about the different qualities of genius between Einstein and Stephen Hawking.
Yeah.
That's something I'd like to discuss next week.
Yeah, that's one person's view.
Wait, we don't have to go into it now. 'cause it's
Yeah,
already-
I just want to point out it's just one person's assertion in that video.
Yeah.
That genius of Feynman is a higher order genius than the genius of Hawking. He argues, for example. He argues that Hawking was an ordinary genius and Feynman was a superlative, some higher order genius. And I can see the point, but again, it's really an opinion because genius is an emergent property of a neural network, And how do you, it's like temperature, like at what point do you say it's hotter than the other guy? How do you measure the degree of genius? Maybe.
So anyway, I like that. It's after 10. I'm going to respect your time. I'm actually going to go and try and find breakfast myself. So if that's okay, I've enjoyed this conversation, but thanks for responding to my question on your post. Sam, always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye for now.